Horror. We all love the horror genre. We all love getting a good scare every now and then. But there's nothing more scary than real events that have taken place in and around certain parts of the globe. In this video, I'll be showcasing the top 7 real horror stories. The Hexham Heads. In the 1970s, a boy was digging through his garden until he found these heads, which apparently belonged to Celtic people from the medieval time. Where he found these heads was in between the border of England and Scotland, and the boy eventually took these heads into his house, and that's when many mad things started happening. He was getting visited by a goat creature was visiting him and his family, and eventually visited his next door neighbour, and they thought it had something to do with the heads, so they decided to get rid of them. The Steel Mill Dogman. In the 1980s, a group of boys were camping by a steel mill, and they heard dogs barking in the background until eventually one of them caught sight of a large dog creature that stood up on its 2 hind legs, and as it approached the boys, the train flew by and scared the animal away. Humphrey. In the 2010s, a South African farmer adopted a hippo and named it Humphrey. He described the hippo as being like a son to him, and he was completely oblivious to the hippo's nature. However, years later, the hippo began attacking random people as they crossed the property, and Marius eventually met his demise when the hippo turned on him and drowned him in a lake. And the hippo escaped and was never found, never seen again. Shunkawarakan. The word Shunkawarakan translates to carry off dog in Native American. Apparently this strange-looking creature resembling a hyena and a wolf, or possibly a wolverine of some sort, was going around into the Montana regions, attacking the farmlands and even attacking people's dogs and pets and some sort. Eventually, a farmer one winter found the creature on his property, and then he shot it and eventually stuffed the creature. And the creature did appear in a book. There's numerous photos of it. The book that it was found in was titled Tales of Two Natures and Mysteries, something like that. And yeah, the creature's never been found since, and it's, yeah. Rita Camilleri homicide. Rita Camilleri was a mother of 2, and her youngest daughter, Jessica, was diagnosed with numerous mental disabilities, and she also fixated on horror movies, and this would often alarm her older sister, but her mother was oblivious to it and just said that Jessica wouldn't hurt a fly. But in 2019, they were minding the 4-year-old nephew, and Jessica's disabilities were playing up around the same time. Now that she was 25, she ended up going way too far, and eventually the mother felt like she could not handle it anymore, so she ended up calling a psychiatric ward, and then that's when Jessica snapped and started stabbing her mother, eventually decapitating her. The scary truth to this whole story is the fact that even though Jessica was born with many mental disabilities, she did understand what from right from wrong and was able to write clear sentences and all sorts. And basically, she was like using her older sister, Christy, realised that she was playing up her disabilities as she got older and used it as a bit of an excuse to be evil towards people. And this case is just a clear example of why you should never use any disability as an excuse to do bad things. Again is if not the most infamous serial killer in history, and his crimes were very horrific. He would often use skulls as bowls. He would get nipples from people and make them into belts, and he would saw off their faces and use them as masks. His crimes inspired the infamous Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Psycho movie from the 60s. And even though as horrific as his crimes were, he would also steal graves and used their bodies to make all his mad obsessions, and as a result, he was sentenced to life in prison. Mosfin dolls. Anatoly Mosfin's a troubled man who grew up in Soviet Russia back in the 1960s. As a kid, he had a run-in with a paedophile, and at age 13, he was forced to kiss a girl's corpse on the lips, and this is what started his obsession with the dead. And he remembered having like schizophrenic moments where the girl was visiting him in his sleep, and over the years he ended up getting like a girlfriend, and because of his prude nature, because of his past experience with the paedophile, he was unable to have kids, and this led to the breakup. He couldn't adopt a kid as well because of his religious views, and he did tell his parents that if he can't have a child, then he'll summon the kids from the dead to come back, and he did precisely that. His parents noticed that he was starting to collect these very large, very seemingly antique-looking dolls, and didn't think much of it. But it wasn't until 2011 when the police found him desecrating a Muslim grave, and they went back to his house to try and find anti-Muslim propaganda, but instead they found these big, large dolls. And when one of them let off a smell, that's when they looked further into it, and then they realised that all these dolls weren't dolls. They were actually mummified corpses of young girls, aged 3 to 25. Over the years, the authorities have found out that Anatoly Mosfin has been desecrating the graves of young girls because he felt lonely and wanted a child of his own, specifically a daughter, and he was waiting for black magic or science to bring these kids back to life, but unfortunately it's failed. As a result, Anatoly has been locked up in a sane asylum, and this is probably one of the craziest stories, horror stories I've ever really covered or talked about or even seen in my life. You know, most of the horror stories is either like someone killing or dismembering someone, but this guy literally dug up the graves of young girls and turned them into dolls, mummifying them, and I don't know whether like it's a creepy story, but at the same time it's really sad because he did this out of loneliness. That is it for this video. I am Starnvader, and I'll see you all in the next video.